I never thought a single night could turn my entire life into a nightmare, but when I got the call from my sister at 11:57 p.m., panic dripping from her voice, I knew something catastrophic had happened. Though I couldn't yet grasp that the person behind this storm was my own 13-year-old niece, the girl I had spoiled, protected, and loved as if she were my own child. The words tumbled out of my sister's mouth like venom, accusing me of a crime so horrific that my knees buckled, my heart slammed against my ribcage, and I could feel the walls of my reality shattering around me. And before I could even process, neighbors had gathered, whispers filled the air. My parents looked at me with eyes full of disbelief and horror, and even my closest friends hesitated, unsure, their loyalties already swayed by the story my niece had crafted with terrifying precision, a story she had rehearsed, manipulated, and timed perfectly to strike when I was most vulnerable. And I remember standing frozen in the middle of my own home, the silence deafening, the phone still clutched in my hand, as her small but piercing voice finally reached me through the other line, each word a calculated blade slicing through every trust one had ever built. And when I confronted her in the living room, the place where she had first taken her first steps and I had held her in my arms, she looked at me with a calmness I could not comprehend, a smirk playing on her lips, eyes colder than I had ever imagined, and whispered, "I told the truth, didn't I?" While the people I loved and counted on most gasped, leaned in, their disbelief mingled with the fear and doubt she had planted in them over weeks, her subtle lies like seeds that had grown into a forest of suspicion, suffocating me from every side. And the worst part was seeing my partner, the person whose love I had always trusted, hesitate, the soft falter in her gaze, the quiet suspicion in her voice that asked more in tone than words. And I knew then that this was not just an accusation. It was a weapon, wielded expertly by someone who had calculated every reaction, every tear, every moment of hesitation, and I felt my world collapse, my career suddenly hanging by a thread as whispers reached my office, calls from colleagues filled with uneasy pauses, and the subtle retreat of friends who no longer wanted to be near the shadow of scandal. And I remember pacing my empty apartment late into the night, replaying every interaction, every small smile or glance from my niece, realizing too late the signs I had ignored, the little manipulations that seemed innocent but were part of a carefully orchestrated trap to ruin me, and the crushing isolation that followed was unbearable. Every door I knocked on met with wary eyes, every attempt at explanation dismissed as defensive bluster, and sleep became impossible, nightmares invading even the brief moments my eyelids could close, haunted by the image of my family turning against me, by the cold certainty that the person I had trusted most had planned this devastation with meticulous care, and in my darkest moments, I could feel rage and sorrow entwining, threatening to consume me entirely. Yet there was a stubborn ember of resolve deep inside, a need to unearth the truth before the lie could destroy what little remained of my life, so I began to investigate, meticulously tracing texts, analyzing timestamps, finding inconsistencies in her story that even she hadn't covered. And piece by piece, the puzzle began to reveal a nightmare far worse than I had imagined, exposing not only her cunning but also the failures of the adults around her, whose unquestioning trust in her innocence had allowed the lie to fester into a weapon of utter destruction, and every confrontation became a battleground of words and glances, where I had to balance fury with evidence, heartbreak with strategy, knowing that the moment I misstepped, the fragile thread of belief could snap entirely. And yet, despite the mounting proof, there were nights when I sat alone in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wishing I could rewind time, wishing the girl I had cherished could be innocent again, wishing that my parents, my sister, my friends, my partner could see what I saw. Yet each attempt at reason met with resistance, doubt, or tears of grief misdirected at me, and the cruelty of it all was almost unbearable, watching as the people I had loved most were manipulated into thinking I was guilty, feeling every piece of my past, my integrity, and my devotion crumble under the weight of a child's vengeful fabrication. And then came the day of revelation, when the evidence I had gathered, painstakingly collected over sleepless nights and days of anxiety, finally shattered the illusion, exposing the lies in front of the judge, my sister, my parents, and my former partner, and I watched as the truth, like a cleansing fire, illuminated the darkness that had consumed my life. Yet the victory was bittersweet, for though my name was cleared, the trust destroyed by those I loved could not be so easily mended. The emptiness left behind was a constant echo, a reminder that innocence could be weaponized, that love could be betrayed, and that the heart could endure a cruelty so profound it redefined the limits of pain. And as I walked out of the courthouse, free in law but shackled in spirit, I felt both relief and devastation, the realization that life had irrevocably changed, that some wounds would never fully heal, and that the child I had adored had wielded betrayal with the precision of an adult, leaving me to rebuild not only my life but the shattered fragments of trust, love, and belief in those around me, and though the nights remain long and my solitude deep, there is a flicker of resilience, a stubborn refusal to be entirely defeated, a knowledge that while everything I had cherished was taken in a storm of deceit, my survival, my determination to endure, and my refusal to allow the lie to define me is the one victory no one can ever steal, and in that realization, amidst the lingering pain, there is a fragile, hard-earned hope that one day, the shadows will lift, and I will reclaim a life not defined by betrayal, but by the strength that rose from the ashes of heartbreak, for even in the face of unimaginable deception, even when the people you trust most abandon you to the cruelty of lies, the human spirit, battered yet unbroken, can find a way to endure, to rebuild, and to survive, leaving behind the ruin created by one child's malice, and standing as a living testament to the devastating power of betrayal and the unyielding resilience of truth.